You woke up this morning. Before thought arrived, your hand found your phone, small, bright rewards for being alive and reachable. You stood before a mirror and assembled a face the world would accept, dressed in signals. Then you stepped into a stream of bodies, all moving in the same direction, at the same speed, wearing the same rehearsed silence. Every action felt voluntary, every choice yours. But the most effective prison ever designed has no walls, no warden, no sentence. It requires only one thing: your absolute certainty that you're free, and that certainty is about to collapse. The first sound is the hush of fabric as a body turns beneath covers, caught between dream and duty. Light presses against closed eyelids, thin and insistent. In that suspended instant, before a name returns, before a single memory forms, something old and wordless stirs, a silent resistance. Muscles recall the weight of yesterday. The ceiling above is blank, patient, waiting for a signal to begin. Fingers reach for the rectangle on the nightstand, the gesture practiced, automatic. Blue light spills across skin. A string of notifications flickers, tiny tokens, each promising recognition, each demanding response. The mind lingers in the gap between impulse and intention. Breath catches, then releases. The room is still, yet the machinery of the day has already started, invisible gears turning. There is no command, only compliance. The body rises, not with hope, but with the slow ache of obligation. Consciousness sharpens, and with it, the sense of having been summoned. Freedom, in this moment, feels like something remembered from a dream, already fading as the world asserts its claim. The mirror waits, silent and unblinking, as water runs and hands move through the same rehearsed motions. Toothbrush, razor, a palm pressed to the cheek, each gesture a checkpoint, each movement familiar enough to slip beneath thought. The face that looks back is not quite untouched. It is already searching for approval, already measuring itself against an invisible standard. The first judgment of the day is private, but it is no less exacting. Fingers trace the jawline, taming stray hair, smoothing skin, erasing the evidence of sleep. The closet opens, a narrow field of choices. Fabrics hang in rows, coded for belonging, for acceptability, for blending in. The hand hovers, then settles on what will draw the least attention. What signals safety to the world outside? Buttons fasten, collars align, shoes are tied with the same tightness as yesterday. The costume is complete. In the glass, the outline of a person takes shape, ready to perform. This is not liberation, but rehearsal. The path from bedroom to bathroom to wardrobe is a corridor lined with silent instructions. By the time the door closes behind, the mask is set. The self has been assembled piece by piece for the world that waits beyond. The hallway stretches out, narrowing into the world beyond the front door. Shoes press against pavement, joining a silent procession already in motion. The street fills with bodies, each one folded into itself, eyes fixed ahead or lost in the glow of a screen. Steps fall into rhythm, not by choice, but by necessity, each person pacing themselves to the pulse of the city. A bus exhales at the curb, swallowing passengers in a practiced sweep. Inside, faces blur behind glass, each reflected in the window, each framed by the same tired repetition. Shoulders brush, apologies are mouthed but never heard. There is no conversation, only the shuffle of feet and the low drone of engines. The crowd moves as a single organism, flowing through metal gates, up escalators, down corridors lined with advertisements promising escape. Every turn is mapped, every pause anticipated. The destination remains unspoken, suspended somewhere beyond the next transfer. In this current, individuality dissolves into the slow tide of collective movement, each person alone, together, carried forward without asking where or why. A name on a badge, a seat at a desk, a password whispered by HR, each detail feels like a marker of arrival, but the boundaries are already drawn. The new employee sits through the orientation video, watching smiling faces recite the language of belonging. Words like team, family, fit flicker across the screen, promising a place in something larger than oneself. In the conference room, a manager explains the ladder: entry, associate, senior, lead. Each rung described as a choice, each step mapped in advance. The handbook, thick with policies, outlines not just what to do, but how to be. Questions are welcomed, but only the right kind, the wrong kind. About purpose, about difference, about why things are done, fade into silence. Recruiters surveyed across industries admit that nearly 3 out of 4 hires are chosen not for what they know, but for how well they echo the group. Culture fit becomes the hidden gatekeeper. The candidate who stands out too sharply, who brings a different cadence or a trace of doubt, becomes a risk. Conformity is praised as collaboration. Individuality is tolerated only when it can be domesticated, made useful, made safe. The career path, advertised as a field of open doors, is in practice a narrow corridor. Each promotion depends on the ability to mirror the values already in place. The rituals, team lunches, shared jokes, the annual retreat are less about connection than about signaling membership. The employee learns to speak the dialect, to laugh on cue, to share just enough of themselves to remain unthreatening. Over time, the difference between choosing a role and being chosen by it blurs. The corporate cage is built not of walls, but of expectations, each one internalized until it feels like instinct. There is always another rung, another badge, another sign that says, "You have arrived." Yet the arrival never feels complete. The suit pressed just so, the watch that gleams beneath fluorescent lights, the title stitched onto a plastic rectangle. Each is a token, traded in the silent marketplace of recognition. The office hums with quiet competition. Every desk a small territory marked by branded mugs, framed certificates, the latest device. Eyes flicker, measuring, comparing. The difference between belonging and exclusion is only a matter of detail. The wrong shoes, the outdated phone, a job title that sits just below the threshold of envy. Lunch breaks become rituals of display. A new car key tossed onto the table, stories of exclusive restaurants, of vacations curated for maximum effect. The performance is endless, subtle, exhausting. Promises of freedom come with each promotion, but each step up the ladder tightens the grip. The cost of the next upgrade is not just money, but the willingness to become what is required to hold it. To hesitate is to risk being left behind, to fall out of sync with the tempo of advancement. Financial freedom is whispered about like a secret, dangled just out of reach. Every raise is already spent, every bonus spoken for. The chase continues, not because it satisfies, but because to stop is to become invisible. The status seeker becomes trapped in the very symbols that once promised escape. The world applauds the ascent, but the higher the climb, the narrower the ledge. What began as a quest for agency ends as a careful balancing act, each possession a reminder of the freedom traded away for the privilege of being seen. A screen glows in the palm, promising connection. The thumb scrolls, searching for something unnamed, as a parade of faces and headlines flicker past. Somewhere, a notification waits, its arrival neither predictable nor random, engineered to land just when attention begins to drift. Each alert is a small spark, a whisper of recognition, a chance to be seen. The mind, hungry for reward, leans forward. Beneath the surface, the machinery is precise. Engineers calibrate every ping, every red dot, every vibration, drawing on research that shows the unpredictable win is the most addictive. The pattern mirrors the logic of the slot machine. Sometimes a like, sometimes silence, always the possibility of more. This is not an accident. Internal documents from social media giants describe the stochastic timing engine, a system built to maximize engagement by keeping the next reward just out of reach. In congressional hearings, former employees testify that these platforms optimize for the next dopamine hit, not for well-being. The result is a loop: anticipation, reward, crash, repeat. 21% of users now meet the criteria for problematic use, unable to stop even as the feed turns hollow. The influencer, once a person, becomes a node in the system, both architect and captive, tailoring every post to the invisible hand of the algorithm. The algorithm, in turn, watches, learns, adapts, tightening the loop. The promise was freedom, a global stage, a voice for all. The reality is a cage built of variable rewards, where every scroll is a pull of the lever and every pause is measured, recorded, used. The mind returns again and again, chasing the next signal. Choice remains, but it is narrowed, shaped by forces unseen. The digital world offers endless space, but the boundaries are drawn in code. The door is always open, yet the room grows smaller with every touch. A menu of options waits at the counter. Tall, grande, venti, oat milk, or almond, caramel, or vanilla. The names change, the flavors shift, but the cup in hand is always the same. Behind the counter, a dozen brands promise difference. Each logo a badge of identity, each slogan a whisper of individuality. Yet every sip tastes of the same roasted certainty, brewed to match the expectations of the morning line. The illusion of choice multiplies. Pick your blend, your lid, your playlist for the walk to work. But the routes are mapped, the playlists curated by unseen hands, the day already partitioned into predictable fragments. In the voting booth, the pattern repeats. Ballots list names, parties, platforms, each one packaged, rehearsed, polished for mass appeal. The language is new, the faces rotated, but the boundaries remain. The outcome is rarely a surprise. The slogans promise change, but the machinery grinds forward, indifferent to the shape of the banners. The voter stands alone, pen poised, feeling the weight of a decision that was made long before the curtain closed. Lifestyle packages crowd the margins of the day. Gyms offer transformation in 30 days or less. Diets rebrand hunger as virtue. Streaming services promise worlds to explore, but funnel every viewer toward the same trending series. Each product, each plan, each new you is a variant of the same design. Freedom rendered as a catalog of nearly identical alternatives. The range of imaginable lives narrows, not through force, but through the gentle pressure of endless, hollow variety. The world hums with the promise of difference, but beneath the surface, the script is already written. The only true choice is which mask to wear as the day unfolds. A pulse flickers in the dark, deep inside the skull. It waits, silent, for the next cue. A vibration, a flash, the faint promise of something new. Before thought can intervene, the body leans forward, hand already reaching, eyes fixed on the rectangle that glows with possibility. The mind is not searching for information, not really. It is searching for the next small surge, the invisible reward that lives just beyond the edge of certainty. This is the machinery beneath the moment. A message arrives, dopamine surges, anticipation sharpens every sense, and the finger taps, hungry for validation. Sometimes there is a reward, a like, a reply, a sign that you exist. Sometimes there is nothing. The outcome is never guaranteed. It is this uncertainty that binds the mind to the loop. The brain's reward system, ancient and unyielding, is tuned to the unpredictable. A fixed pattern grows dull. But when reward comes at random, when the next hit might be just one more scroll away, the system ignites. The same logic governs the slot machine, the lottery, the endless feed. Each cue triggers a wave of anticipation, flooding the brain with potential. The actual reward, when it comes, is smaller than the promise. A brief flicker that fades almost instantly. The crash follows, hollow and familiar. Yet the cycle restarts, driven by the hope that the next attempt will be different. Neuroscientists call this variable ratio reinforcement. The subject calls it life. The anticipation is more powerful than the prize. The crash is quieter than the longing. The loop is closed, seamless, invisible. Knowing the trick does not break the spell. The machinery runs whether or not you believe in it. The mind returns, again and again, to the place where freedom was promised and a cage was built instead. The body moves before the mind decides. Steps retrace yesterday's path. Hands reach for the same mug, the same keys. Beneath the surface, a silent circuit hums, the basal ganglia, deep in the brain, guiding each movement along grooves carved by repetition. Every gesture, every small ritual is a signal fired down a well-worn track. The mind believes it is steering, but most choices have already been made, long before awareness can catch up. Neuroscientists trace these patterns to the machinery of habit. Repeated actions strengthen neural pathways until they become the default, a kind of autopilot that runs without permission. The familiar route to work, the habitual order at the cafe, the evening spent scrolling a glowing screen, each one is a loop, closing tighter with every pass. The comfort of routine is not just psychological, it is physical, inscribed in the architecture of the brain. But comfort is only half the story. When the path is blocked, when the routine is threatened, another signal flares. The amygdala, guardian of uncertainty, floods the system with anxiety. The unknown is not a blank canvas, but a warning. The body recoils, muscles tense. The urge to return to the known is overwhelming. Breaking a habit is not a gentle act. It is a small death, a tearing away from the safety of the predictable. The mind resists, clinging to the old pattern, even when it no longer serves. Freedom, in this light, is not a door opening, but a wall crumbling. The dust chokes, the heart races, the body remembers the cost of stepping outside the loop. The world, for a moment, becomes raw and unshaped, and the self hovers at the edge of dissolution, longing for the comfort of the cage it built. A hand hovers over the send button, trembling with the knowledge of what comes next. The message, sharp as glass, shatters the fragile calm of a relationship that was just beginning to feel safe. Later, the job offer sits unopened in the inbox, its promise of change quietly suffocating. The finger deletes it, pulse quickening, relief and regret tangled in the same breath. This is not accident or misfortune. It is a choice, made in the shadows of the mind where freedom feels unbearable and sabotage becomes a kind of shelter. The figure of the self-saboteur is not rare. In clinical studies, more than 7 out of 10 people who describe themselves as impulsive also confess to self-handicapping, setting traps for their own progress, then falling into them with a sense of grim satisfaction. In matters of the heart, the pattern repeats. 42% admit to ending relationships that could have offered real connection, not because of betrayal or boredom, but because the risk of happiness feels more dangerous than loneliness. The logic runs deep. It is safer to destroy what you want than to risk having it taken away. The modern underground man does not live in a cellar. He sits in meetings and scrolls through profiles, always a step away from the next refusal. He is fluent in the language of self-doubt, rehearsing every possible failure until success itself becomes a threat. The terror is not of suffering, but of freedom, the raw, dizzying responsibility of shaping a life without excuses. Better to stay underground where every wound is self-inflicted and every loss is proof of control. The cycle repeats, the promotion declined, the love withdrawn, the project abandoned at the moment of completion. Each act is a quiet rebellion against the world's demands, but also against the self that longs to break free. The paradox is complete. The cage is built from the inside, and the key is thrown away by a hand that cannot bear to use it. The story you tell yourself is not written in your own hand. From the first word, it is shaped by voices that came before. Parents, teachers, screens flickering in the dark. The soft pressure of a crowd's expectation. The self, so carefully assembled, learns its lines early. It absorbs what is admired, what is punished, what is safe to want, what is dangerous to refuse. Every preference, every fear, every small rebellion is measured against a script that was handed down, revised in whispers, never signed. The narrator inside, the one who claims to choose, to desire, to act freely, speaks with borrowed language. The accent is familiar, but the origin is lost. What feels like authenticity is often only the deepest layer of imitation, a mask worn so long it clings to the skin. The memory of a true face fades, replaced by the certainty of performance. Even the urge to break free, to be different, is anticipated by the script. Here, a gesture of defiance. There, a flash of doubt, always within the boundaries of what has already been imagined by others. Conditioning is not a chain that can be seen or heard. It is the architecture of the mind itself, invisible but absolute. When the world asks, "Who are you?" the answer arrives on cue, rehearsed and ready. a story stitched together from fragments of other stories. Beneath the layers of habit, beneath the reflex to please or to resist, the search for something untouched continues, a restless digging in the dark, hoping for a glimpse of bedrock, something unmade by the world. But the deeper the excavation, the more the ground crumbles into borrowed earth. The question lingers, heavy and unresolved. If the self is a construction, is there anything left when the scaffolding falls away? The moment arrives when every excuse falls away. There is no one left to blame, no algorithm, no manager, no parent, no crowd to point toward. The room is silent, the mask slips, the self stands alone, facing the raw fact of choice. No script, no prompt, no safety net. In this space, freedom is not a gift but a sentence. Every possible outcome, every consequence, every regret, every loss, each one belongs to the one who chooses. The body knows it first. Heart pounding, breath shallow, hands trembling, the skin prickles with the urge to flee. This is not the anxiety of public speaking or the fear of being judged. This is the terror of being the only author, the only witness, the only one to answer for what happens next. Therapists describe patients who reach this threshold, a job left, a marriage ended, a truth spoken aloud, and find themselves unable to move, paralyzed by the weight of their own agency. The term is existential panic. The symptoms are physical: numbness, dizziness, a tightening in the chest, a desperate wish to reverse time and return to the comfort of orders, routines, instructions. Some retreat into sleep, some into distraction, some into self-destruction. The mind claws at the bars of its old cage, longing for the relief of being ruled by anything other than itself. Responsibility in its purest form is unbearable. To be free is to carry the burden of every mistake, every missed chance, every hurt inflicted or endured. There is no one to absorb the blow, no authority to absorb the blame. The mind recoils, the body freezes. The urge to surrender, to crawl back into the familiar cell is overwhelming. For many, this is the moment the cage is rebuilt, by choice, not by yours. The price of freedom is total accountability. Most would rather pay with their dreams than live with that debt. There are those who step outside the circle, who see the painted backdrop for what it is. The outsider stands at the edge, watching the world rehearse its lines, feeling the slow unraveling of every shared story. It is not a triumph. It is not a revelation that brings comfort. Stripped of the familiar scripts, the world becomes silent, emptied of its old meanings. The words that once connected dissolve into static. The rituals that shaped belonging lose their power. There is no applause, no audience, only the echo of one's own questions, unanswered and unanswerable. The loneliness of authentic choice is not the quiet of a peaceful room. It is the chill of open space, the vertigo of standing without reference points. Here, every value must be chosen, every meaning made from scratch. The old scaffolding falls away, leaving the mind exposed to a sky that does not answer back. The outsider is not envied. He is avoided, regarded with suspicion, his refusal to play mistaken for arrogance or madness. But the cost is not measured in exile from others. It is measured in the weight of meaninglessness that presses in when the stage is gone and the script is ash. To see through the illusion is to lose the comfort of the crowd. The world's warmth is replaced by a cold clarity, a vision that cuts through every mask, every borrowed desire, every easy certainty. The outsider does not find freedom in this space. He finds the terror of a world without guarantees, where each step must be invented, and no one is waiting to catch him if he falls. The silence is absolute. The only witness is the self, and even that is uncertain. In the end, the price of seeing is to stand alone, beyond the reach of shared illusions, with nothing left but the burden of choice and the void that waits beyond. No clang of iron, no guard, no sentence. The system grip is silent, everywhere and nowhere. A request, loan, permit, job, meets a reply in code, denied, criteria not met. There is no explanation, no appeal, just a process hidden behind screens. The algorithm decides, but the judge is invisible. Click for details, and the page loops endlessly. The progress bar stalls, the chatbot apologizes, but nothing changes. Each attempt to escape triggers another form, another verification, another reset. Authority remains unreachable, the logic shifting with every update, every patch. Here, the bars are lines of code, the corridors mapped by algorithms that change without warning. A seller is locked out after one flagged transaction, told to wait for a review that never comes. A creator channel is demonetized, the reason buried in community standards that shift in silence. The only answer? Your case is under review. Days pass, weeks. The storefront stays closed, the channel remains silent. Each inquiry circles back to the beginning, as if the maze was built to exhaust hope. There is no public punishment, no confrontation. The sentence is process, the punishment is delay. The person becomes a case number, a risk score, a data point shuffled by code. The system answers to no one. The maze has no center, only endless corridors. Escape means compliance. Victory means invisibility. The self dissolves into procedure. The most disturbing truth waits not in the machinery of habit or the invisible hand of authority, but in the quiet moment when the door to the cell stands open and the prisoner turns back. The underground man, pale and blinking in the half-light, is offered escape. He pauses, feeling the raw wind of possibility against his skin, and recoils. "I am not a sick man. I am a man who is maliciously ill," he says, turning the knife inward, savoring the sting. The freedom he is offered is too wide, too exposed. The walls of his underground are cold, but they are his. In the world above, every choice would be his to answer for, every regret his alone to bear. Down here, he can nurse his wounds and call it agency. Modern life offers the same paradox. The chance to step outside the loop, to refuse the script, is always there. But so is the terror of blank space, the vertigo of uncharted meaning. The underground man chooses his suffering, not because it is forced upon him, but because it is familiar. To destroy what is offered, to spit in the face of the world's invitation, becomes a final act of control. Self-destruction is not a malfunction. It is a last defense against the unbearable weight of real freedom. The cell is chosen, the key discarded, the silence embraced. The world above recedes. The cage is rebuilt, brick by the very hand that claims to long for escape. In the end, the most unbreakable prison is the one we return to willingly, whispering that we are not sick, only stubborn, only free on our own terms, even if those terms are ruin. The morning returns, but nothing is as it was. The same hand reaches for the same phone, the same face stares back from the same mirror. But the reflection is uneasy, familiar, yet strange. The rituals unfold as always. Water on skin, fabric on flesh, keys in hand. Each gesture lands with the weight of memory, but the script feels worn thin. The lines too rehearsed. There is no voice telling you what to do, no sign pointing the way. Only the echo of your own movements, looping back on themselves, asking a silent question that has no answer. The world outside hums with the same routines, doors closing, shoes on pavement, the silent procession of bodies moving in sync. Yet beneath the surface, something has shifted. The mask sits heavier, the costume itches at the seams. The choices, once invisible, now flicker at the edge of awareness. The cup you choose, the seat you take, the words you offer at work, all of them seem to ask, who is making these decisions? Where does the self begin and the world end? The mirror holds your gaze, offering no comfort. The face you wear is assembled from habits, borrowed phrases, the residue of yesterday's fears and tomorrow's hopes. Behind the eyes, a question stirs, raw and unresolved. If every path is mapped, every gesture practiced, what remains when the performance stops? In the silence, the reflection waits, not for an answer, but for the courage to look without flinching. The question remains, silent and insistent, refusing to resolve. If the self is built from borrowed gestures, if every choice is shaped by patterns too old to name, what does it mean to want, to act, to be. The day unfolds as always. Alarm, mirror, screen, the soft press of shoes against concrete. But beneath each movement, the question lingers. Whose will animates the body? Whose voice whispers the next command? The mind circles, searching for a place where the loop ends and something unconditioned begins. But each answer dissolves, replaced by another mask, another script, another echo of a story learned in childhood and rehearsed in secret. Is there a freedom that survives the collapse of every illusion, or is the longing for agency itself another trick, another cage shaped by the desire to escape? Perhaps there is no final reckoning, only the endless tension between the comfort of the cell and the terror of the open door. The world offers its routines, its roles, its promises of meaning. The self accepts, resists, recoils, returns. The question waits, patient as shadow, asking not to be answered, only to be seen. In the hush that follows, nothing is settled. The mirror is empty. The day begins again. A chair sits in the center of an empty room, its surface gleaming under a pale, indifferent light. The shape is familiar. Back, seat, 4 legs, but something is wrong. The grain of the wood suggests muscle. The curve of the armrest hints at a shoulder. The seat is worn in the shape of a body that once moved, once resisted. There is no movement now. The room is silent except for the faint creak as the air shifts, as if the chair might remember what it was. In Kafka's Nightmare, the transformation is abrupt. A man wakes to find his body foreign, his voice reduced to a sound no one understands. Here, the change is slowly, almost invisible. The self, bent by years of compliance, by the weight of silent rules, by the repetition of days, hardens into something useful, something that no longer asks, no longer dreams. The world does not flinch. The world needs chairs. No one mourns the loss. The process is quiet, bureaucratic, efficient. The paperwork is filed, the badge deactivated, the name erased from the list. The chair remains. It is sturdy, reliable, impossible to distinguish from the others lined up along the wall. What was once a person has become a fixture, a placeholder, a thing that fills space, but no longer claims it. The room grows colder as the hours pass. Shadows lengthen. The chair waits, unblinking, for an occupant who will never arrive. There is no applause, no witness, no voice left to protest. Only the faint memory of movement lingers in the grain, a whisper of what was traded for the comfort of stillness. The image holds. Nothing moves. Nothing is resolved. The transformation is complete. Freedom today flickers between screens, salaries, and silent anxieties, while algorithms nudge choices before we sense them. Neuroscience shows that nearly 95% of daily actions run on habit, not intention. The walls aren't visible, but their pressure is constant. True agency demands discomfort, a willingness to step outside what soothes or flatters. The cage is no less real for being invisible. What would you risk to see the bars? Share your thoughts below.